Farmer Tom here. Welcome to the Farmer Tomcast. Today on our ongoing series, Heroes of the Green, we got Daniel Berman, legendary cannabis photographer and all-around legendary photographer. How's it going today, Daniel?
It's good to
Good.
see you. It's been a long time.
Yeah, it has, man. We've done a lot of work together over the
Yeah.
years. I was just thinking that, you're the first photographer that I ever really worked with. And it's been a great experience knowing you. And the world wants to hear your cannabis story. So I'm going to mute myself and hand the mic over to you. And the world wants to hear about Daniel Berman.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me, Tom. I guess the story really begins, so I'm the creative director for Leaf Magazines, which Wes Abney and David Jablinski and I co-founded almost 13 years ago, which I just cannot even believe now. But way back when, Wes Abney and I were colleagues and friends at the community college newspaper where we worked together. And Wes had kind of a crazy idea after going to California. He said, we should start a weed magazine, which was kind of crazy because we'd only been studying journalism for maybe 6 months at that point. And I was just learning to be a photographer. I was kind of getting my feet on the ground for freelance. And, in 2010, we launched Northwest Leaf, which, from the very beginning was all about cannabis journalism. It wasn't paid for in any way. You couldn't buy your way into the magazine even early on. But it was such a different landscape back then. You'll recall in 2010, we only had medical cannabis in Washington State. We didn't have recreational. You couldn't go to a dispensary on every corner like you can today in our state and in many states around the country. But back then, it was medical only, and people were very afraid of cannabis still, and they still are today. But back then, we had a lot of trouble even getting people to participate in the stories that we wanted to tell. We couldn't show faces a lot of times. People would give us fake names. It was, at the time, it was groundbreaking journalism to be able to tell any story really about cannabis, even for people who, it was legal under state law at that time. But, we pushed on. It starts in 2010 in Washington as a little 16-page newsprint, low quality. We didn't even have the money to afford staples at the time. So it was just a collection of paper. It was folded. Sometimes there'd be pages missing, and then, years later, now we have 6 monthly magazines operating in 13 states around the country. So it's gone from Northwest Leaf. Now we have Oregon Leaf, Alaska Leaf, California Leaf, Maryland Leaf, and Northeast Leaf. So I hope I didn't forget. Yeah, there's 6 of them every month, and you can find them in 13 states. So it's just been a remarkable, piece by piece, as the movement has grown, as cannabis has grown, as acceptance for the plant has grown and widened, we've been able to, expand our role and literally plant seeds around the country. So it's very exciting, to have the support, long-term support from, people like you, Tom, in Washington State here. I don't know how many times we've had a story with a Farmer Tom connection in the Leaf, but you've been part of our annual harvest issue, like every November across the country. We look at outdoor cannabis farms, and that's one of our most popular ones. But each month we take a special issue stance, whether it's concentrates, edibles, harvest. We're going to be looking at strains and genetics soon, culture, glass. It's really exciting. Each month is so different that we get to really tell all the different stories that exist within cannabis. A lot of people think, oh, what could you possibly write about every month? And I think, our team, which has grown, it's still a pretty small team. Maybe only 24 regular contributors across the country. And, every month we'll hold a content meeting, and the list of stuff we want to cover and can cover, it's amazing to witness. I feel grateful to be at the helm with, Wes Abney, Mike Ricker, Tom Bowers, and our other state directors, who are really trying to change the way that cannabis is reported on, the way it's perceived. Our reporting has won awards. It's broken news. We've shed light on things that, other mainstream media outlets are not covering, or they're not covering it, realistically or truthfully. So, we still, even as cannabis is, growing widely and accepted in something like half the country has medical or legal cannabis, we still have an important role to play. We're still doing, what we call exclusive cannabis journalism. So it's a blessing to be able to do what we're doing. Nobody's getting rich off of it, but we're able to tell the stories we want to tell, every month. And we're all very, glad to be here.
Nice. So were you consuming cannabis before you started working with Wes on this project?
Yeah, I think Wes and I definitely bonded over our mutual affection for cannabis. I think, when I was in high school and first starting to use cannabis, it was still pretty illicit. I didn't have a medical card at the time. My parents tried to put me in rehab for marijuana. So, the stigma, the anti-weed stigma at the time, it was everywhere. I remember not telling my professors about the fact that I was working at a magazine that I helped launch. I kept it a secret for probably the first 2 years, even though I was in, journalism school up at Western Washington in Bellingham, studying reporting and design and photography and layout. And I didn't tell them that I was running a magazine on the weekends and I was coming down to Seattle. They didn't know. And when they finally, somebody found a copy in Bellingham and they saw my name in the masthead and they said, wait, is that the same one who's like in our reporting class? And so word got out in the journalism department, and it was kind of an open secret at that point. But for a long time, I didn't have my cannabis work on my professional portfolio website because I was afraid of how more mainstream clients might interpret that work. I remember, I had a potential client say, "We love your portraits, but when you go to photograph the mayor next week, make sure he's not around any marijuana. He's not for marijuana. Don't put him in the plants." So, with that kind of disclaimer, people were more readily accepting cannabis later on. But yeah, for a long time, they love the magazine, but they hate weed. So it's a challenge. We're still trying to change perspectives every month with the work that we do. But yeah, early on, Wes and I would get high and talk about our plans for the future and for making this magazine get off the ground. And it's always been something that has brought comfort to me. It's something that, for so many people, and myself included, it really unites people.